What's up, Browns fans? Time to hop in the car and get back on the road to the 2020 NFL Draft. Nathan Zegura, joined by Sir Andrew Gribble. Once again, we look at a position that will be of particular importance, or we think it will be, for the Cleveland Browns and Gribbs. After looking at the tackles first, today we're going to look at the safeties.
Yeah, it's a group that when the Browns started the new league year, they had two safeties on the entire roster, and that was Sheldrick Redwine, who had a really strong finish to his rookie season, and JT Hassel, who was a practice squad guy at the start of the year and got his way onto the active roster and played in a game or two and helped you out at that position. So 2 is not an ideal number. Usually you're going to have at least 4 on the active roster, and the Browns are at that number now after adding Andrew Sendejo and Carl Joseph. But those are not maybe your long-term options at the position. So this is the position that definitely needs to be addressed. Probably not in the first round, but certainly day 2, we'll be talking safeties.
Yeah, and you look at the moves that were made. Clearly, it was a position they wanted to address. Gone from a year ago are Demarius Randall and Morgan Burnett, your starters. In their place, you get Andrew Sendejo, a 10-year veteran who knows this coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball, and head coach Kevin Stefanski from a long tenure in Minnesota, as well as spending a little bit of time in Philly last year where Andrew Berry got to know him. And then Carl Joseph is the former first-rounder out of West Virginia. Both Sendejo and Joseph have played some free safety. Both have played some strong safety in their time in the NFL. If you're looking at day 1, probably right now, you'd say Sendejo is your free safety, Joseph, your strong safety, Redwine, your third safety. And Redwine, last year's 4th-round pick from the U, showed promise, I think, in the handful of starts that he made down the stretch. But it's a position that I think a lot of people are targeting for the Cleveland Browns. You mentioned the first round, and we'll just get that out of the way. I really think the only safety the Browns could end up taking in the first round would be, if you consider him a safety, Isaiah Simmons, if he's on the board there at 10. But he's kind of a safety linebacker hybrid, but just an overall stud.
Yeah, I mean, first things first, he's probably not going to be there at number 10. That I think that's we're dreaming at that point. But then secondly, I think if you're projecting Simmons as mostly a safety for you, I mean, do you even take him at number 10? I mean, that would be the other question. I think this team would need him helping out at linebacker a whole lot more than safety. So even if you did take Simmons in the first round, I wouldn't rule out going after another safety in the second round.
Yeah, and I think when you look at this draft, the strength of the safety position, that crop of 4 to 5 guys that a lot of people are intrigued by, it's likely that a few of them will be on the board for the Browns when they pick at number 41. So as we kind of go through some of the names that you need to know here, some of the top prospects, we'll start at the top. Xavier McKinney from Alabama, probably not going to be there for the Browns at pick number 41. He'd be somebody you'd probably have to move into the first round to get. But as you well know, Gribbs, the history of Alabama safeties and their success in the NFL is well documented.
Yeah, I mean, there's some that have been drafted highly. I guess even Landon Collins kind of fell more than people thought when he was drafted in the league. I think Clinton Dix has had a great career in the league. Eddie Jackson's been a Pro Bowl player for the Bears, even though he was about a 4th-round pick. So the list goes on and on with these guys. They can play. McKinney's more of a hybrid type. You could line him up in the slot if you wanted. So he fits the modern NFL. I just don't see him being around when the Browns are on the clock at 41, and I also wouldn't expect the Browns to make a trade up to go get a safety if we think that was a possibility.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So a couple more names to know, and I think these are the 2 that you're hearing the most buzz about being linked to the Cleveland Browns. Grant Delpit from LSU, who you and I both loved 2 years ago. If he'd come out after that 2018 draft, probably a top 15 pick, was unanimous All-American, 14 pass breakups, 5 interceptions, won the Jack Tatum Award this last year. Hampered by an injury, still a very good year, was a consensus All-American, first-team All-SEC for the 2nd straight year, and won the Thorpe Award as the nation's top DB. Largely, I would say, on the reputation he built in the 2018 campaign. But, those injuries slowed him. There are tackling concerns, but 6'2", 213. He wore number 7 at LSU. He is a playmaker. He knows how to get his hands on the football. He can play a single high safety. He can play near the line of scrimmage. He can cover guys in the slot. I think his natural movement skills, everything about this kid screams to me first-round talent, and it kind of mirrors what happened last year when there was a first-round talent out of LSU who didn't have as good of a year, falls to the second round, the Browns pounce on him, and that person, of course, was our cornerback, Greedy Williams. I think Delpit could follow that model for the Browns, and I would love to see him in brown and orange.
Yeah, he's a great player, and he gets comparisons to Kenny Vaccaro by NFL.com's Lance Zierlein, but that to me shows that he's got a lot of versatility. And I think if you were able to add him to your team, you usually can't say this about a lot of second round picks, but if you're drafting him in the second round, I think you're expecting him to make an immediate impact. And I think he would be someone in this group that we're about to go over. I think he'd maybe be the most ready, especially if he's healthy, because he's played on the big stage, played against future NFL players all over the place. You're making less of a projection with Delpit, I think, than maybe some of the other guys.
Yeah, and the next two guys that you would be making a projection, two guys coming from smaller schools, Jeremy Chin from Southern Illinois, and then Kyle Duger coming from Lenora Rhine. And these are two guys who played at a smaller level. Chin more free safety than strong safety, but can play, and it's very comfortable as he did there near the line of scrimmage. He can blitz the quarterback. He can hit. Duggar, also a big-time hitter and a guy that kind of is in that safety linebacker hybrid mold. I think that you look at Chin, a guy that Dane Brugler, we've talked to him on the best podcast available. He likes that fit for the Browns as well. But these guys, a little bit of a projection in the sense that they're coming from smaller schools, not facing the same competition, but as a Grant Delpit did certainly at LSU and the SEC, but guys that have a lot of talent.
Yeah, and they both held their own, whether it be at the Senior Bowl or at the Combine. I mean, that's where the we're making maybe less of a projection. I mean, these guys can definitely play. The thing I like about Duger is he is a dynamic returner, and I think that's something that the Browns, even though they added JoJo Natson, I don't think they're done looking for guys that can make plays in the return game. So that wouldn't be the reason you draft him, but it's certainly a perk. With a guy like Duger. Again, he's returning kicks and punts against lesser competition, against guys that aren't going to be in the NFL, but certainly a skill set you want to have. The more you can do, and Duger seems to be able to do it.
The next two guys on our list are probably names that you should know. Ashton Davis out of Cal, and Antoine Winfield Jr., a name that everybody knows, who's got that pedigree coming from Minnesota. And last year, Winfield, who's undersized, he's 5'9", 203, but last year, 8 pass breakups, 7 interceptions. That means that the 8 times he got his hands on the ball, 7 were picks, which is a remarkable stat you've shared with us before. And Ashton Davis, he projects as that single high safety. He can come down and cover the slot. He was a track star. That's how he got onto the team at Cal, because of his speed. And these two guys are both more from that free safety mold, good players, good ball skills, rangy players, and guys that, again, at 41 or maybe even a little bit later, could be people the Browns are looking at.
Yeah, and it's interesting. 2 really different career paths for both of these guys who kind of fall in the same category. I mean, Winfield is obviously the son of Antoine Winfield, who played in the NFL, played at Ohio State. He's only only a sophomore, so that means he redshirted and then played a couple years. And like you said, Davis was a walk-on, and he's a senior, so he's a little bit older, lot of experience. But two guys that I think we're getting a little bit more attention earlier in the draft process. But now that there's the feeling that a guy like a Delpit could fall. That's why you're seeing these guys maybe linked to the Browns a little bit less, because I think Delpit is the game changer that kind of comes down there and I think is a clear, solid number 2 above the rest of the pack.
Yeah, and in case the Browns go and look for safety maybe in the 3rd round, 2 names just to have on your radar. Terrell Burgess out of Utah, a 1-year starter who played very well last year for them, has good speed and size. And then Brandon Jones out of Texas, another one of those players to keep an eye on. If you get into the 3rd round there, he was 2nd team All Big Ten last year with a couple of picks for Texas. So that's kind of our overview of this safety position. And Gribbs, let's get now into what we would consider the dream scenario. And I'm pretty sure you and I are going to be united on this dream scenario. But let's say the Browns do get their tackle of the future in round 1, as many people are expecting them to do. It comes here now to pick 41. We're talking about the safeties. They're on the board. What would be the dream scenario?
Well, I've got 2 dream scenarios. I think the first dream scenario will be that the only safety taken is Xavier McKinney before the Browns are on the clock at number 41, because we obviously love Grant Delpit, maybe the Browns don't. And maybe there's another guy that they really like at that safety position. I want them to have all their options open at number 41, and to have that means you only need McKinney off the board at safety. And then my second dream scenario is if somehow you have a player that maybe as a pass rusher or a linebacker that you like more at 41, that in the 3rd round you could get a player like a Duger, a Winfield, or even an Ashton Davis still with that first pick in the 3rd round. That to me is an alternative dream scenario if they choose to go a different direction at 41.
I like that. And our final stop on the road to the draft will be, we'll go through scenarios and we'll go through all of our different dream scenarios for how things could play out, what we're hearing as they may play out here on the road to the draft. But I'm with you. I would love to see all those safeties on the board. I certainly have full trust in Andrew Berry and his group to make the decision on which one would be best for the Browns. To my amateur eye, I think Grant Delpit, just the pedigree, where he played, what he's accomplished, what he can do when he's at his best. I think he has the best tape in terms of his best tape is better than anybody else's best tape. And if we're to believe that injury was the reason for a little drop-off last year, get him healthy, get him on the field. I also am very intrigued by Jeremy Chin, just an unbelievable athlete, so much versatility there. And I know somebody that the Browns have had conversations with. And so I think he would be on the radar as well. But I think it's set up very, very well because you mentioned in your other dream scenario, linebacker, defensive end, those positions all seem to kind of be meeting where pick 41, you're going to have an opportunity to get a very good player at what we've decided is a position of need for this team after, of course, tackle, which if you missed that, check out our first installment of the road to the draft. We covered the tackles, safeties here. We've got a couple more positions for you coming up, and then we'll get into the final scenarios right before the draft. Thanks for tuning in once again. For Andrew Gribble, I'm Nathan Zegura saying thanks for watching Road to the Draft.